Have you had sex with any other students?
Oh, no.
Are you sure about that?
She's the former high school secretary accused of sleeping with 2 students, one of them allegedly a minor.
Is this the first time you've had a physical relationship with a student?
This is the 3rd time that I've been with him.
Police say she was busted on Valentine's Day by her husband. And now we have a big update in the case of Alicia Hughes, the new charges she is expected to face after police say they allegedly made a shocking discovery. We're on the case presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Hey guys, real quick, before we start this episode of On the Case, I want to tell you about this app, Upside, which can get you cash back on everyday purchases like gas, groceries, and takeout. All you do, download Upside for free, claim an offer at one of their 100,000 plus locations, then pay like you typically would with your card. After that, verify the purchase and you get money back. Say I need gas or takeout one night. I search for offers on Upside first. Then after I spend, money appears in my app and I just transfer it straight to my bank. Upside's frequent users earn an average of $254 back a year. So to start getting your cash back, click the link in the description or scan the QR code and use promo code OTC to get an extra 25 cents bonus on every gallon on your first tank of gas. This past Valentine's Day allegedly was a nightmare for a man in Union City, Indiana. Police say the husband of 31-year-old Alicia Hughes, a local school secretary, walked in on his wife having sex with an 18-year-old, an alleged student at the school where she worked. Now, the husband allegedly got physical in confronting Hughes and the student. The Union City Police Department was notified of an alleged battery involving Hughes and her husband, who share 3 young boys together. And you just have to think about how sad that situation is to respond to, no matter the circumstances. Now, I'll have much more on that part of the story in just a moment, but I want to turn the attention to the woman who is at the center of this case, who is facing several charges, because authorities discovered that not only was she allegedly having sex with an 18-year-old student, she also allegedly had sex with a 17-year-old student, and that is much different in the eyes of the law. Hughes was booked on 5 counts of child seduction on Valentine's Day. She is slated to go on trial in June, according to court records, and now we have a big update in this case that's potentially taking the charges she is facing and the potential punishment that she could face to a whole new level. Now, before I get to that part of it, I want to go through the interrogation video that we have of Hughes talking to police. It's still February 14th, but it's now later in the afternoon, 4:17 p.m., and Hughes herself arrives at the Union City Police Department for an interview. Here's how it begins.
Out of all the having to tell one of the most respected people I look at and that I love as a friend and a colleague, and someone that has heard a lot of my life issues with my husband, that was a very hard thing I had to tell him. I said, like, my bed is very bad, and I need a meeting with you and Keith, and I need to resign. And he said, I know. And he's like, we're going to figure it out. You're going to be strong. It's going to be okay. I'll do my job. I have to write up and figure out my end of things, and we'll be in contact and go from there. And I said, I never meant to be a horrible person. Like, I never meant for it to be like that. There's no justifying it. But I've been just so beat up and mentally and physically abused by Bailey for so long, and that attention was there. And as stupid as that sounds, I don't know. That's where I'm at. And now we're here.
Now, the interrogation footage is tough to decipher with the audio at times, but Hughes appears to begin the interview explaining that she confided in the 18-year-old student that she allegedly was caught sleeping with, telling him about her marital problems and that she needed to resign from the school. She claims that this 18-year-old reassured her that everything would work out. And while cheating allegations of this nature in these circumstances, they're incredibly shocking, no charges were filed on Hughes because the student was 18 years old and legally was an adult. But this is not where the story ends. Later that same day, a probable cause affidavit that we have reveals a follow-up investigation was requested on a complaint of child seduction, which in Indiana law means that an adult in authority had sexual contact with a minor. And the affidavit says an interview was then conducted at the Union City Police Department with a 17-year-old male. Here is how a Randolph County investigator described the interview in the court document. JV1 stated that he is a senior at Union City Junior-Senior High School. He advised in September 2025 he had called the school to report himself as absent. The Union City Junior-Senior High School attendance secretary, Alicia Hughes, is who JV1 stated he spoke with that day. JV1 stated that shortly after reporting himself as absent with Hughes, he received a text message from an unknown number accusing JV1 of not really being sick. JV1 discovered this was the personal cell number of Hughes. The affidavit continues to go into more detail about Hughes's alleged relationship with the 17-year-old student. It says, quote, JV1 stated that the communication between him and Hughes was just a regular conversation. The two met in Union City, Harder Park, and just had normal conversations. JV1 stated that the conversation changed to a sexual nature in September or early October. JV1 stated he had met Hughes at the Union City Dollar General store. JV1 stated Hughes was wearing a dress and entered his vehicle, straddling him while he was seated in the driver's seat. JV1 undid his pants and the two had sexual intercourse for the first time. JV1 stated that he and Hughes had sexual intercourse 4 additional times, once in Hughes's residence, once in JV1's car on the street in front of Hughes's residence, and twice in Harder Park near the soccer field. JV1 stated he ended the sexual relationship around the first week of November. All of the sexual encounters occurred within the Union City, Indiana city limits. Now, an investigator learns that Hughes not only allegedly had sex with 1 high school student, but 2, and that second student who Hughes allegedly had sex with on at least 5 occasions is a minor. Now, according to Indiana law, 16 years old is the legal age of consent, but in this situation, it is illegal for an adult in a position of authority to have sexual contact with anyone under 18, and a school secretary falls under that category. So now I want to go back to this interrogation video from Valentine's Day where Hughes claims that the 18-year-old student reassured her everything would work out when it came to her alleged marital issues. She then tells the investigator that while there's no justifying her actions, she claims she was physically and mentally abused by her husband.
So this was going on since December?
Yeah, but a physical thing hasn't been going on since maybe end of January, something like that.
Is this the first time you've had a physical relationship with a student?
This is the 3rd time that I've been with him. Not before he was 18. This is the 3rd time I've been with him.
The 31-year-old Hughes says that she was allegedly in sexual contact with the 18-year-old student 3 times since January. Now that in and of itself isn't criminal, even though it is disturbing. But here's where the investigator brings up the allegations made by the 17-year-old student that came into the station earlier that day.
Have you had sex with any other students?
Oh, no.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
The name of the 17-year-old was likely redacted from the interview, but Hughes then begins to explain her alleged interactions with him.
I have met with him, but wasn't sleeping with him. I wasn't having an affair with how emotional it was.
Did you ever send him pictures?
Yes.
But you've never had sex with him?
No.
Never met him at dollar store parking lot?
Yes, I have met him, but I never slept with him.
So what did you do?
I just talked to him. I hung out with him. Not for very long.
Okay. So how long did that last?
Maybe a couple months of life, but like after school started, I don't even remember exactly, probably September to October, November.
And how did it all start?
I think I'm over here at this point.
Hughes tells the investigator that she didn't have sex with the 17-year-old student, but she did admit to allegedly sending him photos. And that is very important to talk about when it comes to the new charges she's facing. I'll have more on that in a moment. She also talked about meeting up, allegedly, with that 17-year-old over a weeks-long period. But when the investigator asked how their interactions began, she said she needed a lawyer. And at this point, the investigator heard enough.
You are under arrest for 5 counts of child seduction. Stand up, turn around, hands on your back.
I did just have surgery here. I'm just letting you know.
No.
Okay. I didn't take it. It really hurt. Ow, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
My hand was just like, it didn't hurt, it just like twisted the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
Can someone call my mom to get my son?
Um,
He's at a friend's house, right next door to, like, 2 houses down from my house.
we can try to call, complex about it.
Yeah, my mom is also affected if you could.
When the investigator walks out of the room, it appears Hughes looks uncomfortable, to say the least. Now, as we said, on Valentine's Day, she was charged with those 5 counts of child seduction. But now the Union City Police Department says they have new alleged evidence. Quote, during the course of the investigation involving the former high school secretary Alicia Hughes, detectives with the Union City Police Department executed a lawful search warrant on Miss Hughes's cellular device. As a result of that search, investigators discovered video evidence depicting a person under the age of 18 engaged in sexual acts with Miss Hughes. Based on the evidence obtained, formal charges have been submitted to the Randolph County Prosecutor's Office for review and additional filings. The recommended charges include child exploitation and possession of child pornography, classified as a level 5 felony under Indiana law. 4 days after allegedly walking in on his wife, Hughes's husband filed for divorce. Included in the docket is a petition for the dissolution of marriage, along with a petition for emergency custody of their 3 children. Their next hearing on that front is scheduled for May 6th. Now, this case involves heartbreak on all sides. You have a husband who's now picking up the pieces of a broken family. You have police who say that Hughes's husband was being investigated for battery, but as of now, it does not appear there is a case against him per the Indiana court records we've reviewed. As for Hughes, court records say she has a jury trial slated for June 15th. Hughes was a secretary at the Randolph Eastern School Corporation. She worked at the junior-senior high school there. The school district superintendent released a statement following her arrest, and this is what it says, quote, Randolph Eastern School Corporation is aware of the arrest of a district employee following a law enforcement investigation into allegations involving inappropriate conduct with the student. The employee has been removed from all duties with students pending the outcome of the legal process. Student safety and well-being remain our highest priority. RESC takes all allegations involving students extremely seriously. Upon becoming aware of concerns, the corporation fully cooperated with law enforcement and will continue to do so as the investigation proceeds. We appreciate the professionalism and diligence of local authorities in handling this matter. Because this is an active criminal investigation and to protect the privacy of students and the integrity of the process, RESC will not comment further on specific details at this time. We will continue to follow all legal and personnel procedures required under state law and board policy. We recognize that situations of this nature are deeply concerning for our families, staff, and the broader community. Please know that we share those concerns and are taking this matter with the utmost seriousness, care, and urgency. Our focus remains on supporting our students and maintaining a safe, respectful, and supportive learning environment for all students. Joining us now to talk more about this is civil litigation attorney Chris Klotz. I know you work a lot of cases in what can be a very, very difficult and concerning space. And you have Alicia Hughes here, and now she's facing a new charge. It was already disturbing what she was accused of, but now according to law enforcement in Union City, Indiana, she had some sexually explicit images of her allegedly and this 17-year-old, or I guess what they're referring to as someone who was considered a minor, and she potentially could be facing child pornography charges. How does that impact a case that is already being litigated going forward, where you have these 5 child seduction charges she was already facing?
Yeah, 100%, Chris. Thanks for having me. So, when you add the layer of the CSAM or child sexual abuse material on top of the actual, physical contact charges, which is child seduction in Indiana, it can make it much, much more serious. So, the charges of having child pornography is can be a federal offense. I would suspect probably in this case, they'll probably charge it in the state court case. They can't charge it either. I don't know if the feds would want to pick up a case like this or not, but if there is child sexual assault material, that can be something that can dramatically increase the exposure for criminal time in prison. So, for instance, there are sometimes minimum mandatories, and I haven't looked up Indiana yet, but some states have minimum mandatory uh, prison sentence for production of child pornography, sometimes for possession of child pornography. But even if they texted these images back and forth between one another, just a simple act of sending a child pornographic image to somebody else can turn it from mere possession of child pornography into distribution or production of child pornography, which sometimes can escalate your exposure to prison time exponentially.
Well, I also, you think of, she has this interrogation video where she's admitting to certain things, and then police seem to have, you have this 17-year-old who allegedly came in and told his side of the story, and that seems to be very damning. But once you add in that image, which you cannot unsee, you can't take away, I'm sure it's very difficult to argue away. Like, how does that part of it impact the calculation that a defense team has to go through in figuring out how you're going to handle this case?
Yeah, that makes it so as a somebody who's defending her from a criminal defense standpoint makes the case much more difficult because it may only be that in the case with the child seduction that it would be one person's word against another unless they have some type of text thread talking about the fact that they had sex. But when you get an image of a child and somebody that you've had inappropriate sexual relationships with, it really turns those type of cases into damage control versus a whodunit and can they prove it. Once you get a video like that or an image like that, especially if it has both of them in the image, that case for a criminal defense lawyer becomes a damage control issue because it's really, there's no getting around an image, right? Once you got the image, like you were saying earlier, the image exists in perpetuity. Nothing on the internet ever goes away. That's something that all parents should be aware of, especially, in talking with their kids about things to have on your radar. Is once you make an image like that and it goes on the internet somewhere or it travels through the internet, those images almost never go away and they can haunt children, survivors, years and years and years on down the road.
It's interesting in this case, too, because the age of consent in Indiana is 16 years old. We're talking about a victim who is 17, and the charge that she is facing is child seduction, which is someone having a position of power over someone under the age of 18. And yet there's this second individual who she allegedly had sex with, who is considered still a student, but considered an adult because they're 18 years old. And I just think of we're talking about probably a span of several months, which is the difference between having 2 victims and having just one victim in this case. Just how do you, in the world that you operate in, you navigate some of these laws when it comes to age of consent and what you can actually charge with? Because I'm sure you can look at the 18-year-old and feel like what she did was allegedly as predatory as what she did to the 17-year-old.
Yeah. So, really, in the world of creating laws as a legislator, there has to be like a demarcation, and sometimes it doesn't really make common sense that you have like a cutoff where somebody within a matter of weeks is somebody that has been legally abused, and then they're, a couple weeks later they're not necessarily legally abused. That's why many states, I can't speak for Indiana off the top of my head, but I know in Florida, where you do have somebody who is in a position of authority, for instance, a teacher or a clergy member or a doctor or somebody in the Department of Juvenile Justice, where there's a disparate power structure between them, there can be still a criminal charge, even if the age range is maybe out of, where somebody might be a couple weeks outside of the statute for an age related, there can be a disparate power situation where somebody in a position of authority should not have done, the conduct with somebody who's younger. And so that can be kind of a catch-all in some states.
And when it comes to, I think of her defense and like how this could go, because now you have this child sex abuse material. You have her allegedly admitting on the interrogation video that she had sent the photos to this 17-year-old, or the photos were taken. She does talk about, and she alleges that she's the victim of an abusive marriage. Like, how strong of an argument is that in some of these cases for a defendant that they were a victim of what was going on in home, and because of that, these, allegedly sexually abusing someone who's a minor happened?
Yeah. So that defense is a huge goose egg. There is nothing that an adult can do to justify having an inappropriate sexual relationship with a child or somebody who's a minor. There is nothing that can be happening on the home front that would ever excuse conduct like this. So, while that may be something that she might bring up to a judge during a sentencing phase, as far as an issue of guilt or innocence, for the underlying charge, it's a nothing sandwich. There's nothing there that can ever justify an adult having an inappropriate relationship with a child. It doesn't matter how bad your life is. It doesn't matter what you've got going on. You are still responsible under the law, and really, don't we think morally also, for containing your own conduct and for containing your own, you know, sexual urges. There's no way that an adult can take a pass on that just because they're in a bad situation. Of course, I have sympathy for anybody who's in an abusive relationship. Absolutely, that's wrong. Something that no woman or man in a relationship should be going through, but it never rises to the level of an excuse for your own bad conduct.
Yeah, and she makes those allegations, but it's unclear, how true those allegations are related to her marriage, and her husband has filed for divorce, and you certainly feel for just kind of the family aspect of all of it. It's interesting. She's, we've talked about cases involving teachers and coaches, and those are people who you really think of like positions of power. Like a school secretary can be a very forgettable person kind of in your school experience. It's a person who like you check in with, check out, maybe your parents leave you something at the front desk, like that's it. What do you make of the fact that she was a school secretary, but still being held to that standard of what a teacher would be held to, or a coach? And is there a way, I just think of, for as strong as the evidence seems in this case of like what her defense might try to do, like, can they try to argue their way out of a child seduction law and just saying like, well, she actually wasn't really that important at the school?
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, because that's an interesting issue. When I was in, just harken back to your own experience as a kid, when I was in school, any school official was somebody that I had been taught to hold regard for and respect for. So if I had a school secretary tell me that, hey, you're not going to be marked absent if you do X, Y, and Z, or I'm going to keep marking you absent and excused as long as you have sex with me. Or, there's always an implied sense of power for somebody that's in the school administration. So I don't think that if her defense is going to be that, "Oh, I wasn't a teacher, I wasn't a coach, I wasn't a principal," I don't think that's going to carry any water. First of all, it's a you did it or didn't do it statute in almost every single state. There's no consent issue here. And so I don't think that that's going to go very far to say, hey, I was a low level administrator. those low-level administrators still have the ability to impact a student's life, right? If she says, I'm going to mark all of your absences unexcused if you don't meet me at the park, or if so there is still a power disparity that's not excusable.
Yeah, and it seemed like she had access to cell phone numbers, which, can be kept in like a school directory as well. So, absolutely like had a major role in these students' lives. When it comes to potential jail time, and I know that there's a lot that we still don't know. A lot of information will come out, but we just have this arrest affidavit. We now know that child sex abuse material may be involved in this case. I mean, how likely is it that she could see prison time?
Yeah, so I would say there's probably a pretty good a chance, especially with the addition of the CSAM, child sexual assault material. Some people call it child porn. It was able to take a look at the affidavit, and the affidavit so far only has the 4 counts of child seduction. Right, I would expect an amendment by the state attorney's office to add the child pornography counts in there, and once you do that, like I said earlier, usually when there's images, the images can dramatically expand the exposure to prison time. So I would imagine an amendment to the affidavit or the indictment is going to be coming from the state attorney's office once they have all of the information vetted and verified. And so I'd expect that her current charges will be added to.
And then just lastly, from the civil side of things, because I think that, even if she was able to get the cell phone number for that student when he called out absent from the school, and she's able to use that to then get in touch with him, and then that allegedly facilitates some of the sexual activity that she's now facing charges for. I mean, what are some of the things you'd be looking at with this school district as far as their exposure to, whether this 17-year-old would want to pursue that in a civil area, just kind of related to everything that's been alleged?
Yeah, and so I mean, as you know, Chris, our firm has a whole division that's devoted towards investigating and then pursuing civil cases of child sexual abuse, or even in cases adult sexual abuse. And we have church cases, school cases, Department of Juvenile Justice, foster home cases. We have CSAM cases, and so when you look at these kind of cases, you're looking at the underlying facts, which we've already talked about what the event was. Also, then we're looking at, does the school have some type of notice that something like this has been happening, or that there has been any type of impropriety by the employee as they've gone through? Did the school know that the secretary, that Ms. Hughes, was accessing cell phone numbers, if that's what she did? Did the school know that she was having these, meetings with, I'm putting meetings in quotes, any type of inappropriate contact or conversations with students and people who are juveniles? Does the school know or have some type of notice, or did they have reason to have notice and it was their policies and procedures that really didn't track what the teachers and the secretaries and the administrators were doing? So notice can be looked at that way. Also, because there's multiple students that appear, at least we know about 2 right now, right? One was 17, one was 18. Does the school have any kind of notice that this was going on? Was there any scuttlebutt about Ms. Hughes ever having inappropriate relationships with kids or any type of inappropriate communications? Has she been disciplined for this type of behavior before? The notice to the school is very often, critical in being able to decide whether or not you can move forward with a civil lawsuit. Those are all things we don't really know enough about right now, just from the criminal investigation that we have access to. But that would be something that we would be looking at as if we were looking at this for a civil case.
And we'll see what happens next. I mean, certainly just incredibly disturbing allegation she is facing. We'll see what plays out in court. Chris Klotz, always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Always glad to be here.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and we're also streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.